Hi, I'm Doug Padgett with Vote Common Good. At Vote Common Good, we encourage people of faith to bring about a change on Election Day by making the common good their voting criteria, and by deepening into faith, hope, and love to stop the re-election of Donald Trump. We've been talking with faith voters all across the country who did vote for Donald Trump in 2016, but won't be voting for him in 2020. Here are a few of their stories. You can hear their entire interviews and share your story at votecommongood.com.
I voted for him mainly because I didn't trust Hillary Clinton. And I thought maybe I didn't care for him. I've never really cared for him. But I thought, well, maybe he's just saying all these things during the election that he was just sort of pandering to, these crazy people out there saying the things he said. And I thought once he gets in office, he'll chill out probably and start acting more presidential. And unfortunately, we just didn't have very good choices.
Yeah.
So, and then I live in South Carolina, and I'm in the Columbia, Lexington area, and it's very Republican. So just for everybody around me and my family, everybody, votes Republican. Ever since George W. Bush and the whole war thing, I have decided I'm independent. I'm trying to go with what I feel like is the best candidate. So I'm just independent now. But I used to always vote Republican. That's why I was raised Republican. But I did vote for Obama both times. And, not everything he did I was liking, but for the most part, respect the guy that did a good job. And so anyway, I just thought, well, if I vote for him, this would be maybe the lesser of the two evils. And at least I know, I know that she's has lied before, and I'm going to try this out. Yeah. And then, doggone, if he didn't get in office and pretty much the same rhetoric that he did during his campaign, he kept up. And I thought, well, damn, this really is him.
Yeah.
He wasn't kidding. And, the things he's saying, he really believes. And never in my lifetime do I think we would ever have a president like this.
Yeah.
I mean,
how quickly after he was elected did it sort of dawn on you that, as you put it, this is how he is. This is not, he wasn't running sort of an entertainer trying to win an election. This is really who the man is. When do you remember when that dawned on you?
Well, when I went, I have an uncle in Alabama too, who really, really, said, look, we have a family-owned business, and he said, Terry, you really need to vote for Trump because he's going to do well by our company, by the businesses, and this, that, and the other. And I was like, I had a lot of pressure. My husband voted for him too, so I've got pressure at home, and he and I actually argued a good bit. We've kind of agreed to just disagree, not talk about things. But pretty much when I went to the voting booth, I literally felt sick when I was done.
Wow.
But then I thought, he's not going to win. And then, damn, I woke up the next day and he won, and I felt sick again. Pretty much the next day, for sure, because it's just about him.
Right.
He's a clown in a circus, and I just don't feel like that the office is not respectful anymore. I mean, it's scary.
The church that you went to at the time, is that a church you're still involved in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to talk about this with people at church? Does your pastor ever engage in politics or talk about any of this, or is it something you kind of keep out of your church life?
Well, I have two churches. The church that we've been going to for many years, they're mostly, I get the feeling, very Republican, which is fine. Nobody really talks about that. Then one of our associate pastors, he branched off and has his own church now. And that's the one that I've been going to. I go to both churches actually. Yeah. But I would say the second one that branched off, they're probably more progressive or more non-judgmental. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so no one really at church really talks about it. It's just sort of this feeling you get, just talks about all people being included and, no matter if you're gay, black, white, purple, yellow, it's just about being, you're all God's children and we're all loved by God, no matter. And I just, I don't have anybody. My husband has 2 family members that are gay. And that doesn't bother me. It's just, I take it as none of my business. I may not understand it, but it's none of my business. And just as my sexuality is none of their business,
Yeah, right.
And I'm just supposed to love all people.
Yeah. Did that, well, I know that you were saying, and I've heard the same experience from a number of people I've talked to. Like, it's been really stunning how many people have said very similar comments to yours, that they just really felt like they were in a hard place and they could not vote for Hillary Clinton, and they felt like they didn't have any good options. They trusted that Donald Trump was going to change when he got into office, and they were sort of hoping that that was going to be the case. Did you feel like it was a moral struggle for you at all, or was to vote for Donald Trump, or did it feel like it was a political struggle? And I don't know if that's a distinction you would ever make, but when you heard all the things that he said and how he treated women and all of that, did that seem like you were really having a moral crisis at the time, or could you sort of separate that?
Yeah, because no, it definitely is a moral crisis for me. I mean, because the Republican Party likes to tout that they're the Christians,
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not true. It's but the Republican Party probably acts the least Christian. I'm neither Republican nor Democrat, but because of Trump, I kind of lean a little more Democrat,
Right.
than ever before. So it's a moral thing. I really have a hard time with people that I have known and loved and respected, and seeing them protect him. I don't have a problem if somebody voted for him and then just like crap, and they just didn't say anything good or bad about him. But the ones that protect him now and step up and make excuses for him for the things that are inexcusable, I really view them differently now. And I have to really work hard to say, you can't do that here. You're being judgmental. You just some of these things you just can't discuss with people.
Yeah.
And I don't. There's very few people I discuss, with it. But just because there's very few people around me that feel the way I do, other than my 2 sons and one of my son's girlfriend. That's about all it's the only people I can talk to, other than Summer.
Yeah. Boy, I think about people like you all the time, and the work that we do at Vote Common Good is to try to just give a little bit of connection and some solace sometimes. Some of us are I live in Minneapolis, and I do this work to engage faith politics and the common good. So I'm around people all the time who are constantly affirming that Donald Trump should not be reelected the president of the United States, that he's a hazard to the well-being and the safety of the planet and the people in the country. And I hear that all the time. And I just think about people like you, for whom you must look around all the time and just say, like, that is not something I can talk about. I have to keep either close company on that, or I have to keep quiet about my views.
You do, and you don't know me, but it's very hard for me to keep quiet when I get, and every now and then I let it out, but then I just have to kind of pull myself back in. In South Carolina, we're funny. We're primarily, a red state, but then you get to areas like Charleston, more progressive. But in the area I'm in, you can just about assume, you can pretty much assume that everybody around you is probably Republican. So it makes it very hard. And so occasionally I do recognize that someone out there feels the same way I do. I kind of feel like I can vent, and it's a safe place for me to vent.
Yeah.
Because I have some family, most of my family is Republican and will back him. And these are people who are strong Christian people. And I'm thinking, how do you justify this? How do you reconcile this?
And how do they? What's your take on that? How do they, these people you care for and think highly of, how do they justify it?
They'll say that, well, even Jesus used, it was Mary Magdalene, she was a prostitute, and he can use the person you would not, and that's true. But
sure, right.
I just don't think that. My uncle even said to me that he felt like that God sent Trump here for this reason. And I'm thinking, don't put that off on my God. I just, it's rationalizing any way they can, or just sticking their head in the sand. But most of them, will post these pictures on Facebook of Jesus' hand on Trump and talk about what a hard job he has, and everybody's so against him. I'm thinking, oh dear God in heaven, help me.
Yeah. Yeah. Did
I
some
mean,
of these
it's
same people,
crazy.
did they speak the same way about Barack Obama? Like, did they say, look, Barack Obama is God's chosen leader and the person's the president because
Are you
God wanted him to be? Did you hear that from them back then?
never? And if Barack Obama had
Hmm.
ever said or done half the things that
Mm-hmm.
Trump had, their heads would come spinning off.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a curious argument, isn't it? The sort of God, the president is God's chosen leader argument to only be made for this one. Um, and I like I'm not sure. I think depending on your view of God, I think God's more interested in us following our own political system. And here, it's not with kings and royalty.
Right.
It's with somebody wins a nomination and then wins the popular vote or the electoral college, and that's it. That's how the person becomes a political leader. It's just curious that it's being baptized in religious language. Do you see anyone changing around you? Like, do you hear people where maybe you slip out a comment or two and you hear someone come back to you and say, Tara, I get it too. I'm wondering, or I'm starting to change my thinking. Are you hearing much of that in where you are in South Carolina, or people around the country on Facebook and otherwise?
Only the ones that around the same. There's another friend of mine that has always voted Republican, and I think people just are playing ostrich and sticking their heads in the sand.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I would say that pretty much if they did change their mind on it, they're not going to admit it, because I think it comes down to a pride thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to be wrong. I think to myself, how are these people, including my husband, we have really gone at it before, and we've been married almost 30 years, and I'm just like, I just don't feel like I know you anymore. And I just don't think that he says he's independent, but he's not. When you look at his voting record, he's not.
Yeah.
And I love my husband very much. But, I mean, I voted for Republican every time except for Obama. I voted for Obama, and he's a Democrat.
Yeah. Did your
And
husband vote for
I voted
Obama? Do you know? Do you know your husband's
No.
voting in 2000? Yeah.
No, he did not vote for him.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, and I'm in the South, and my other part of the family is from Alabama.
Uh-huh.
People will say it has nothing to do with race, but it has everything to do with the race with Obama. At least where I'm from.
Yeah.
They will not say that because that's a horrible thing to say. But come on,
Do you feel like some of the support for Donald Trump is also related to race and to how people hear him talk about issues and make them cultural, racial issues, and they're encouraged by that? Do you think there's a connection there?
Yes, I do. But no one's going to admit that I know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's so many issues that that sit at the heart of why we all do what we do. And look, I mean, Jesus is teaching to get the speck out of your own eye or the log out of your own eye before you worry about the speck in your brother or sister's eye is really good. But sometimes it's just kind of obvious that people are being motivated by issues that the president says. They believe there's good people on both sides, and they believe that there's criminals that are trying to come across our border because Mexico only gets rid of their bad people. And this kind of talk that seems so like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I hear from a lot of people is a version of, well, I like the way he's a straight talker, but he's not. He's as duplicitous as anyone I've ever heard speak. What I hear them saying is he says the things out loud that I would never say out loud, but I kind of think. And he says them. And that's what they mean by he talks straight because I don't. And they mean that in a very specific angle. Do you sense that you're thinking the same thing, perhaps?
Oh, yeah. I just, like I said, again, I think it's, I was raised, my dad, mom were both from Alabama, and to their credit, I was never raised to be prejudiced. They graduated high school in 1960. Wow. But we moved around. We lived in Germany, Rhode Island. My dad was in the military. So when you're in the military, you experience different cultures, interracial marriages. It's sort of a melting pot. And I'm very grateful for that. And my dad was a very smart man. And he primarily voted for Republican, but he always would talk to me because I knew that he had his PhD in political science. So I knew that I could get a straight answer from him, and he wouldn't try to sway me one way or the other. And so he would always say, I almost could vote for Obama, but I just couldn't quite do it. But Terry, if you feel like that's best, you do it, And so I always respected. I feel like he's probably the only person I could ever go to that would just give me the facts, not his perception of it, but just the facts. That's all I want to know. I don't, and he would give me that. And so before every election, I would just call and say, okay, I need a rundown, and he'd give it to me. And so, he voted for. He voted against Obama the last time, but almost voted for him. So he, I just feel like that a lot has to do with your upbringing.
Yeah.
And for instance, my husband, he was brought up, Republican, and some other areas that were not so good either. I don't agree with either. And I think that really, really carries over into your adulthood. Mm-hmm. It becomes deeply embedded in you. With my children, my two boys who are adults now, they think the way I do, and I think because no matter what, I just said, we're not prejudiced people. We love all people. And my husband never, it's not like he went around saying terrible things, but you sort of get a sense about how someone was raised sometimes with some of their actions, the things they say. And my boys pretty much, they think like I do. I think they're pretty independent.
Yeah, what I hear you describing is how people's identity gets formed and it becomes tied into a political party and that identity sort of carries through no matter who the candidate is, that they're going to stay.
And I think it carries over into your adulthood. I think it stays with you unless you're able to take a step back and look at yourself in the mirror and really, really say, I really want the truth. I really just want to do what God would have me to do. And, I'm feeling like you're a Christian.
I hope to be most days. I'm a pastor. I'm an evangelical pastor from Minnesota. So that's why I do this work.
I mean, so we know what God would say if you're right here. I think if anyone were asking themselves and we're really, really being honest, we know what he would say by his actions.
Yeah.
What he showed us when he was on earth.
Yeah. And the curious thing about this is that, there are so many things Donald Trump does that aren't even Republican. Like I am surprised at how that religious people set aside their religion for some sort of a gain. Like I like their policy, or I like a judge, or I like a tax break, or the economy, which no one teaches that in a religious community. Like, hey, let your morality be dictated by what you get out of it. It's pretty much the opposite is what all of us teach, right? In the teaching in the way of Jesus, or follow the biblical call, it's not get what you can first and worry about the rest later. In fact, the only time that comes up is in the temptation of Jesus, right? Where the temptation is bow to me and I'll give you all the kingdoms of the earth. And it's as if evangelicals have just said, that's a deal I'll take that deal. And it's just, it's bizarre. But so not only is it confusing religiously, but for Republicans to be like, oh no, we're sticking with the guy that, sides with Russia and says yes to tariffs and is only committed to not using the federal government for people's care and just is going to be against the intelligence agents. Like all these things that Republicans have spent my lifetime saying are the fabric of what makes America great. He rips them all down and they still stick with the guy. And it makes you think, he violates their religion and he violates the essence of what it means to be a conservative Republican, and they still stay with him. So
what did he say about being in Times Square? That he could be in the middle of Times Square and kill someone?
Yeah.
I think I'm not exactly how to
I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose any support. Yeah.
And he was right.
Yeah. What do you think that, I know, Terry, you're not to be the political sides, but just as a therapy session for me, maybe as somebody who's in this so deeply, what do you think accounts for that? It's not like they're saying, look, I'm going to vote for Romney and I'll vote for Bush and I'll vote for McCain and, Republicans my way. Donald Trump is like, I think all those guys are fools. I think they're idiots. I hate those guys. They were wrong about everything. And they're still like, well, you're my Republican, candidate. It's just so confusing to me. Do you have any sense of because it's not like he's a Republican. He's Donald Trump. He's whatever Donald Trump
let's not
is.
forget he was once a Democrat. So
yeah,
I mean, you know.
In fact, I hear my friends, but my friends that are Republicans, they're like, well, all that bad stuff that he does, that's just residue from him being a Democrat. He hasn't worked all that out of his system yet. I'm like, are you literally blaming Donald Trump for being too much of a Democrat? I mean, that is genius. I just hand him that. I'm like, okay, that's a level of cynicism that I never even dreamed up. But
I just think, again, it comes down to pride. I think they know deep down he's a terrible person.
Yeah.
And I have got my husband to say, no, he's not who I would want in there. If I had another choice, yeah. But he's all we've got now. And, you know, I'm like, yeah, but just admit, you know, he's like, well, I do like his policies. And I'm like, okay, you know. And
what do you think with Joe Biden? You think any of that's going to change for any of the people you know? Would they be more comfortable with Biden than they were with Clinton enough to get them to say, okay, I can let go of Trump now. I'll take 4 years and call that enough?
Nobody's going to admit it to me. Nobody. I mean, I don't have a lot of faith about my area. Nobody that's going to admit it to me. What they do in their own private, I don't know. I think it's a pride thing. That's the only thing I can tell you. It's a pride.
You know, there were a lot of people who they said in the kind of the polling going into the election, there were a lot of people who said they wouldn't vote for Trump, but they did in the voting booth. They got into the privacy of the voting booth and they did it anyway, and they wouldn't tell a pollster. I wonder if you're tapping into that same thing going the other way. That there's people who will say, I just don't want to hear him for another 4 years. I just can't. I don't want this country to be torn apart as it's being torn apart by him right now. And I'm not going to tell anyone what I'm doing, but I'm not going to vote for him. I don't know if that's the case. I'm not. I hope so. I'm buoyed by the fact that in lots of states, people like you are willing to say something, and you know, you're the kind of person that others look at and say, well, you know, Tara, she's locked in. You know, she's in South Carolina. She's in this situation. She's a evangelical, goes to church. She's never going to change, and that's not true. You know, you were conflicted at the start, and you're going to make a change. And I just wonder if there aren't more Taras in the world than we ever imagined.
Lord, I don't know if the world can handle more of me.
Well, on this point, I think that would be a really good thing.
I just know. I had my mom. She was a person who always felt things very deeply. Anything that somebody else might feel, they would feel surfacey, but she would feel things deeply. And unfortunately, I think I've inherited that. And I just feel like if I'm going to follow Jesus, it's not just going to be something I say I do. Yeah. I'm not perfect by any means. I have a foul mouth sometimes, but what you see is what you get, and it's going to be real.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want to sit here and if I'm, you know, one time women were not given the right to vote, you know, afforded the right to vote. And I almost didn't vote last time, but then, you know, the whole thing of, you know, years ago, women couldn't vote, and now you can, you know, and it's like, oh, but I hate to have our country's blood on my hands, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't want to bring, I'm not at all expecting you to have to explain why you didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, but if you're comfortable, could you share just a little bit? And you're someone who took, you know, women's suffrage and women's right to vote very seriously. It mattered to you. Here there was a woman candidate who was running. What and you'd voted for Obama in the past, so what was it about Hillary Clinton particularly that made it so hard for you that Donald Trump became an option? You know, that you had to sort of make a bet on a guy like Donald Trump.
You know, I felt like she'd lied. You know, and I felt like that she's attached to Bill Clinton. You know, I just the things that he did, her choice to stay with him, that's her choice. I don't care about that. My dad used to say to me that he felt like the only reason why she stayed with him was because this was years ago when he said, Tara, she wants to be president.
Yep.
And damn if she didn't run. And I thought, well, you know, and so maybe that's what it was for me. I just thought that's what it was. It's all for political aspirations. Mm-hmm. And she's not relatable. And, you know, the whole thing about trying to appeal to black people about the whole I keep the basket in my purse, and it's like, stop. You know, don't do all that.
Yeah.
just, you know, they all do it, but just stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. No, look, I do. I was a big supporter of hers, and I heard from people all the time saying to me, really good friends of mine, like, look, I'm never going to vote for Trump, but I'm also could never vote for Hillary. There was a strong never Hillary movement among people
Yeah.
that I knew. I mean, I totally get it. And some people felt like they had 20 years of experience with her and, a perspective being pitched about who she was and how she was in the world. So that was pretty well locked in. And Donald Trump seemed like,
and I could be very wrong, but it's like you said, there's 20-something years there. And, my dad made that comment back when Bill was, going through all that she's staying with him because wants to be president one day. And damn if she didn't run,
Twice. Yeah, she ran twice.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't know if you felt this. I was a big supporter of Hillary's and really pulling for her, partly because I liked her and I found her honorable in a lot of ways and so on. That I know other people don't. But boy, on that election day, I remember having to pull my car over about 9:30 in the morning, and my eyes were welling with tears, thinking, we're finally going to solve the issue of there not having been a woman president. And I was just sort of. And that was part of it. I was sort of put on the side of the scale. A woman president was so important. And I thought it would mean a lot, that it was worth all the other baggage that Hillary Clinton's reputation and way of being.
And I think for me, I would love to see a woman be a president. I would love to see a woman. I think for me, I knew what she was about. I felt like, and I just didn't feel, I thought, well, she just a little bit different. Maybe she could be our woman, Totally. I would have loved to have a woman. I would have loved to. I just didn't feel like I couldn't vote for just because she was a woman.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'd said to my friend Simon something about that, making the argument, hey, I just think it should be a woman. Why won't you vote for a woman? And he looked at me and said, if the Republican candidate was Carly Fiorina, would you vote for her? I was like, no. Right. So I was like, okay, touche. I get the point. Yeah, that some people don't even can't overcome the fact that they're a woman doesn't overcome that. So, it's helpful to sort of be reminded. But I think it's helpful also for people. I'm glad you're willing to share that, because obviously millions of people felt this way about Hillary Clinton. They just couldn't bring themselves to do that. And sometimes people think it's because, they think it's white men who say it, and they believe that it's white men who elected Trump, and certainly it is. And but like, you don't strike me as someone.
There's a lot of white women too that elected Trump, though. A lot of white women that elected Trump.
I agree. Me. Yeah, can you say more about that? That's something I just think a lot of people would really connect to and be able to understand.
I think it's again how they were raised.
Mm-hmm.
How they were raised. My dad taught me to think for myself. One time, my mom, when I voted for Obama, she said, well, why do you have to be such a maverick? Why can't you just go the way that we're going? And my dad looked at her and he said, Elba Joe, he said, you need to be quiet. He said, I'm proud that she's doing her own thing. Yeah. And I'm proud that she can think for herself. It shows me that she's actually thinking.
Wow, that's got to feel good to hear from your dad and your parents.
Yeah, it did. So even though he voted differently, he said, I'm almost voted for Obama. That's something I just couldn't quite get there. That tells me that your upbringing has a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
It just sticks with you, And I'm so grateful that I had the upbringing I had, even though we moved around every 3 years. But I experienced more than just South Carolina, more than just the South, more than just the U.S., I think sometimes we get locked in our own. We don't know what else is out there in other perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
this has sure been a pleasure to speak with you. Are people in your family healthy? Is everybody doing okay with the coronavirus?
We're doing good. We're doing good. Yeah. How about your family?
Yeah. Close friends of ours, parents are very sick and have died, and one's on a respirator right now. And so, it's starting to get closer.
So sorry.
And it's just. So when you think 56 or 58,000 people in the last 6 weeks have died of the same illness, like that's, and that after all this social distancing that we've invoked, we shut the economy down, and still those numbers, it's a little terrifying. And I don't know about you, but I just feel like the president exasperates this problem and exacerbates every problem that we have in this society. It just makes everything worse.
He just wants to
But
he just wants the economy to be better, and I do too. Listen, I do background checks for employment purposes.
yeah,
So when there's not jobs being offered, I'm not making much money, you know. So, you know, I've done it for 15 years. I survived the recession. I'll survive this too, and I'm just doing things like doing Instacart, you know, delivering groceries just to supplement what I'm not getting, you know, from my jobs. I would like the economy to be better, but not at the expense of people's lives, you know.
Well, you've become an essential worker, so thank you for the essential work you do and the being a part of the the food system. It's kind of amazing, right, that we now look at people who do that work and recognize how crucial it is that people are a part of our food chain system.
I've been doing it for about 2 weeks now. I've really kind of enjoyed it, you know, getting to meet all kinds of different people. It's a lot of the elderly, though, who are ordering their groceries because they don't want to go in the stores, you know, so that does feel good to help out.
Good. Well, Tara, thank you again. And I think you're just the kind of person that people are going to really be glad to hear from. And I look forward to staying in touch.
That sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Hey, bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Well, how about that, everybody? Incredible conversation. It's the kind of stuff we do at Vote Common Good. Go to voteCommonGood.com and donate.